This happened to me back in 2017 when me and my boyfriend at the time went to see It Chapter 1. This was sometime on the first night when it came out. Of course, the first chapter of it was a pretty popular movie, and we just barely got in at the 7 o'clock showing. There were only a few tickets and seats left, but my boyfriend at the time and I had to get in without any issues. Of course, we had to sit almost at least a few rows closer to the front. That was okay because my boyfriend at the time and I didn't really mind that, and we actually have been to the movie theaters more than once. Since it was the opening night of the movie, we expected it to be packed with lots of Stephen King's fans. Some people even dressed up as Pennywise, I guess because they were promoting it. One row I sat there were only a few people on the left side, but not really many people on the row we sat on. I think it might have been the fourth row near the front. And my boyfriend and I sat down and we were watching the previews. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. We were just munching down on popcorn and just talking for a little bit, saying that we were going to make everybody jealous that we saw it, etc. Usual talk like that was one thing. However, though, I noticed a few rows from where I was sitting onto my right side, I noticed that there was a man who I happened to not even recognize who he was. I thought that maybe he was just there to see the It movie, but he didn't look like he was dressed up as Pennywise or anything. This was starting to get really weird, and I honestly didn't even know what to expect. I just try to ignore him, thinking that maybe he was just some random dude who wants attention, and I don't even bother wanting to give him any attention whatsoever at all. I stayed like that for a while looking out on the movie screen, while trying not to take my attention to the man. I think about maybe 2 minutes into the movie, I looked to my right again, and this man was sitting at least a few seats from where I was sitting. I was in the inside panicking, thinking that maybe he was trying to have his way to get close enough to probably, quote unquote, do some pretty messed up stuff. I didn't even know what it was or what this man had intentions, but in my gut feeling, I had a feeling that it weren't good. I ended up telling my boyfriend at the time that if he starts to try anything with me, we are leaving the theater. I stayed there for what seemed to be a minute, trying not to take any attention to him, but of course I was still holding on to my boyfriend at the time, praying to God that this guy would just leave me alone and get the hint that I didn't want anything to do with him. However, though, it wasn't long until this guy then finally got up and then just left the theater. After the movie, my boyfriend and I were really confused as to why this guy was sitting on my row and why was he trying to get closer to me. We ended up seeing if we could find any trace of him once we left the theater, but we couldn't find any vehicle or anything that may resemble to him. We tried looking everywhere, but there wasn't any trace we could come up with, although we had made a little bit of a report to the security and explained the movie theater staff about what he looked like. They said that they would try to look into the problem and inform me if they found anything about that guy being odd. The surprising thing was they never even saw him come in the theater, so I'm assuming maybe he came in for the back or something. How did security not even notice that? That honestly was something I don't understand, because security there was pretty strict. Although they would kick you off the theater even for the slightest or one small thing or whatever. I still go to that theater at that time before I moved, but I haven't seen him since, so I don't even really know if he's still out there. That happens to be something I really don't know, but I honestly don't think he's ever there anymore, and I did look and try to see if I can find him anywhere when I go to the movies again, but I couldn't find him. Maybe he was just there one day Maybe he was caught. I have no idea. I still wonder to this day if he was ever caught, to which I have no idea. I still wonder to this day if he was still there, but I'm afraid that's going to be one answer I am not going to have answered. So this took place back sometime in 2018 to happen to be somewhere in Colorado. There was this really good friend of mine that I used to be friends with since 2015. His name was James, and he was about in his college years. I've known him for a few years at the time, but of course I have not spoken to him since. I used to talk to him quite a lot on certain chat room sites. One of them being Tumblr. When I was talking to him on Tumblr at the time, he told me this story actually happened to him back in 2015 before he met me. I don't remember what month it was, but it was in one of the months where a new horror movie was coming out. Now, I can't remember the horror movie's name, but it definitely was something that I kind of slightly remembered, but don't remember entirely. I'll do my best to recreate what actually went on. Now, James was going out to this movie theater with this really weird girl that he never met. Apparently, she happened to be in college with him and decided to go to a movie with him. Her name happened to be Cassidy, and she seemed to be an okay girl. Not ugly, but just really weird. James didn't even know what was weird about Cassidy, but she kind of had some really weird stuff, such as porcelain dolls and even liking certain movies, etc. But of course, this was something that James had no idea why she was like that. Now, they went to the movie that I theater, but when they got there, this is when things started to get really weird. It was at the last showing when everybody was starting to leave to go home for the night. And just as James was about to sit up, he ended up was getting grabbed on his hand by Cassidy. Cassidy ended up looking at him and giving him some really sadistic eyes. That was when James started freaking out, begging Cassidy to let her go. Cassidy ended up saying there and grabbing onto him until suddenly the security guard arrived and asked what was going on. Cassidy just said that, she was just needing help getting up and just went along with it, as in nothing really happened. Honestly scared, shocked, James didn't even explain that Cassidy was grabbing onto him, fearing that Cassidy would not believe in what he said, and just to think that maybe she was just trying to get up or something but needed help. That was the only thing that could be explained. So James had been quiet about this. Of course, he's never talked to Cassidy again since he never saw her since, but he still wonders if she's still out there or not. This story still to this day really surprises him, but he also wondered if something went on between Cassidy and him during the movie. Still, though, he's never returned to that theater with Cassidy, and he still wonders if Cassidy was still even there. That honestly still scares him to this day, but he is glad he's never talked to her since and had no idea where she is. He still does not even want to know. But still to this day, he still wonders that if Cassidy was still out there or something else much worse. So, back sometime in April of 2018, my friend and I, who will happen to call her Charlotte, and I went to this one really popular movie theater that I had pretty different experiences when it came to certain movies we were seeing. However, though, one of these times was definitely something I would always was almost kidnapped. This was one that I would always remember almost being the kidnapped one. But of course, this was definitely one story that my friend would never forget. To make it a long story short, my friend and I decided to spend time with each other sometime in April, and it was around an after school thing. It was Friday, so I didn't have schools, which was really awesome, saying that I get the weekend to myself and etc. However, though we decided to go see the Peter Rabbit movie that was being played in the theater. My friend and I went to the movies, and we ended up having a good time eating some popcorn. Well, but before then, we went to Harvey's and we had dinner before the movie, to which was really good. However, the theater and the movie went pretty well without anything really weird or abnormal happened. I think it was sometime around 8 p.m. and it was already dark out. And of course, my friend and I had some ice cream after the movies. So we stepped outside and realized the parking lot was still busy. Of course, there were still people arriving for late night movies, most of them being teenagers and some adults from college students. We were walking our way to the van, to her van, which happened to be parked far away from the other vehicles. Now, keep in mind, Charlotte doesn't like being parked too close to other vehicles due to her paranoia of her hitting their car or vice versa. We were walking to the far end of the parking lot that happened to be her van, along with at least one other vehicle. It looked like it was a gray van, and it was definitely a model that looked like it was from the late 90s. I just don't remember what the year model it was, but it was something from the late 90s. As I was walking, Charlotte was on her phone talking to her boyfriend while I looked up to see an old man who happened to be around maybe in his late 50s. He was medium build, and he looked like he was about 6'2". Now, keep in mind, he looked like your typical redneck dude that would smoke weed and even have beers with ya. He seemed to be okay, but something about him seemed really off. I stayed close to my friend, thinking that maybe if he had something potentially to harm me, then she could step in there to stop it. This man walked up to me while my friend was on the phone, and I ended up looking at him. I didn't know who he was, but he ended up giving his name as Derek. I said hi to Derek and asked him how he was doing, and he said that he was just hanging around with a few guys in his van. Of course, the van looked like it was a pickup van, so I didn't really bother much about it. Then all of a sudden he asked me what I was doing there with my friend, and I explained to him that I was finished watching a movie called Peter Rabbit. I began to explain to him about some stuff that happened in the movie, my favorite parts, and etc. He said that he's gone to the movie theaters a couple times with his friends, and they seem to enjoy most of the movies. When he asked me something, I was a little uncomfortable. He ended up saying, "I've got a daughter who likes video games and Pokemon. Why don't we go talk to her?" he said. Obviously, I didn't even know what he was doing, so I ended up backing away from him. He kind of frowned a bit, as if he was like a child who couldn't have a toy. He said, "Oh, what's wrong? Are you scared? You don't trust me?" I don't even know what to respond. I was really nervous at this point. Something really was not following right with him. Of course, as soon as Charlotte got off the phone, she'd say, "What the fuck are you doing talking to my friend?" She ended up saying that, and pulled out her pocket knife that she always kept. Of course, Derek backed away as she walked up facing him with a knife close to him. I am going to warn you once. Don't you ever come anywhere near my friend again, or I will kill you. She warned him as he backed away and walked back to his van as if nothing happened, and then drove off. Of course, my friend and I couldn't really see what the vehicle model was, but all we know it was from the 90s, but we couldn't see the license plate, but we also couldn't get in any screen caps about what happened. My friend and I were silent on the way back, but as soon as my friend and I parked somewhere safe away from the damn theater, she told me that Derek guy had kidnapped a young woman, age 16, and had assaulted her. He had probably had any potential of trying to harm me in that situation, which is why she had her pocket knife there, just in case if anyone tried to hurt me. I appreciate her for being there to this day, because if I went with Derek, chances are I would not be around to talk to you about this. We didn't explain anything about this to anyone, not even our parents, as we couldn't really do much since we hadn't seen Derek again, and I hope he's either in prison rotting in hell or something much worse. I have never seen him again, and nothing like this has ever happened since, and I pray to God and hope it doesn't happen again.